Climate Change Committee interview series 8th episode.
This interview series is run by the Climate Change Committee, a club based in Massachusetts dedicated to spreading awareness about climate change. You can find our interviews on our YouTube channel and on any podcast platform.
I am Delara.
And I am Anjali.
And we are today's hosts.
Today we are meeting with Lauren Todd, the creator of her very own consulting group, LKT HR Consulting, which provides customized HR aid to other startups.
She previously worked in human resources at Ameresco, an energy efficiency company with the goal of providing solutions to increase sustainability and renewable energy. Thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here.
I'll start off with our first question. Just what drew you to pursue a career in science, specifically sustainability, or do you have any anecdotes from your early life that inspired you to research renewable alternatives for energy?
That's a great question. And I will say that I kind of fell into this industry by accident. I did not go to school for green technology or sustainability. That really wasn't even a concept when I was in college, and I hate to date myself like that, but that's true. I landed at a really cool company called American Superconductor before Ameresco, and they designed wind farms for customers. And that's really where I fell in love with green technology and sustainability concepts, because it was just, to me, fascinating what the technology of wind concepts can do for companies. And that's really what grabbed me. And I stayed at the company for 11 years. I'm not an engineer or scientist. I've been in human resource roles throughout my career, but very involved in the business. So, providing the talent and finding ways to retain our employees. But I think any engineer would agree with me, or scientist in the field, once it grabs you, you're all in. and it's a field that stays with you, not just in your work, but also carries over at home.
And then to kind of follow up on that, when you started working at Ameresco after, did you have any projects that like really pushed for energy efficiency? Like what were some memorable ones, basically?
So really, I would say any project at Ameresco was memorable. Ameresco was my most favorite job in my career, and it was fun. It was a lot of work, a very difficult company to work for, but in a very good way, because the only thing that Ameresco does is provide clean technology solutions to companies that are looking not just to reduce overall utility costs, but really looking to build a more sustainable future for their business. So we would partner with our customers to figure that out. And we had a portfolio of, I don't remember how many technologies, but very large portfolio, anything from the simplicity of solar panels to building retrofits to getting into, landfills and turning methane gases into clean form of energies, et cetera. So that was fun. And we were all over. We were a very diverse company when it came to clean technologies and really figuring out, we were able to offer a customizable approach to our customers, which is why the company was so successful, because the company was so nimble and could react to what the customer was asking for, if that makes sense.
It's really cool how customizable your work is, actually. And what we understand from HR is that you work a lot with laws and like regulation. So we're wondering, have you worked on any projects that involved the federal government? And if so, were there any that really were impactful for you?
I will think, I'm trying to remember the name of the Army base, and this is bad, but we installed and this was a very controversial project because it was a floating solar farm, a solar array, I should say. And some individuals love that concept and some really hate it because of the number one feedback we received was we don't like it because of the damage to the ecosystem below the water. And what is that going to do? But what we do is this customer had a body of water that was of no use to them. And The water was contaminated. I mean, there was nothing they could do with it. They had it, tested for what is in it and were there any protected species and were we going to cause any harm? And the answer was no. And we were able to work with the customer and figure out how to put a floating solar array instead of taking up land, which was really neat. And that's still being tested as we speak now, just to see, because there's a great amount of concern of rust and, how durable are the parts, even though we put in everything that, we put in as many preventive measures, or the company did, as they could. We're still studying that closely to see the impact of what happens when it sits on water for long periods of time. So that was a very transformational project. And also, the wonderful thing about working with the government is everyone says, oh, guaranteed funding, right? Because when the government, they issue funding to you and that's all fine and good. But what I want to say comes a whole nother very difficult side of working with the government because of the amount of regulation they require. They often have headcount requirements. They have very specific skill sets they're looking for, which is not real difficult. You just have to spend the time looking for it. But I would say the regulation piece of working with the government is the most difficult. The audits, the continuous feedback, the check-ins, they really are involved and hire a staff that is just solely for the project. So they're not multitasking on other projects. Their job is the primary project that you're working on. The neat thing about working with the government is they, in these times and under the current administration, is that they're very forward thinking and they're very creative with how we could use clean technology and sustainability concepts with all kinds of businesses, not just with the government, but all kinds of businesses. And that's really neat to see, is the forward thinking approach. A lot of individuals don't think the government is very forward thinking, but in these times and under this current administration, it really is incredible. The amount of investment and the type of projects that are that customers are taking a risk with and partnering with the government to do.
I know you mentioned that some of your previous clients, like the government, are forward thinking, which is great to hear, to be honest. So we were wondering, like, in general, how do you present these environmental issues to the general public through a company's marketing?
It's the most important, I think. The nice thing about the government, or a plus, I should say, in working in this industry is you have lobbyists everywhere that are either very much in support of or against what you're doing. You tap into those that are in support of your business and you partner with them. That's the first step. There are all kinds of activists, lobbyists, whatever you want to call it, that are very excited about the investment that the government is currently making in clean technology projects. Marketing you have to have, because marketing at any company, not just a clean technology company and not just for the current state and partnering with the government and how forward thinking they are. I think it's important. Marketing, you cannot have a business without marketing, because marketing is really who manages who are we as a company and how do we want to pitch ourselves to our customers, right? Doesn't matter if it's for the government or anybody else. Marketing is critical really to define what is our strategy going to be, and then they partner with sales, right? So you don't have a business if you don't have the two of those working hand in hand. And marketing, selfishly for me as an HR professional, has been critical to my success, right? Because I tap into many of the marketing techniques and I have to understand how the company is being pitched so that we could recruit and put in the proper amount of, or the right type, I should say, of trainings and programs and retention strategies for these employees that we're making investment in.
On another note, kind of, just to switch subjects, Delara and I went to Iceland this summer, and we learned a lot about like how different their country is from ours when it comes to like just general views of the public on renewable energy. But we learned a lot about their projects to reduce carbon in the atmosphere and how much of their country like runs on geothermal energy. So our question is, what do you make of worldwide initiatives to increase renewable energy versus using things like fossil fuels?
So I would say it's a really interesting conundrum that we are in as not just a country, but really the world. There's a lot of really exciting projects that are going on in countries right now. In the UK, Ameresco was lucky enough to partner with a city, and an entire city has made a very aggressive goal to be net zero by a date very soon in the future. And I can't really disclose more than that. But when you see entire cities making a commitment to be carbon neutral by a date that is very near in the future, that's neat to see. And I say, a lot of other locations are waiting to see what happens and how successful they're going to be. And I think there's hundreds of projects going on around the world right now where countries and cities are taking aggressive steps like that. In a couple of years, when they have the projects under their belt and they're actually running and they're able to produce data and how successful they were by making these investments, I think that's going to be a real game changer for many other locations around the world, even here in the US, to see if it really works. Because there's a lot of talk about a lot of really exciting things here in the US, but there's also a lot of wait and see, because these are such significant investments, such significant change, that many of these decision makers want to see data and want to see what actually happened before we sign up and invest a large amount of money in this concept.
You provided the city in the UK as an example, but what would you say is the best country or the country being most progressive in climate change aid? And how do you think our country can apply those ideas in this crisis?
Well, the hard thing about climate change is it's a very emotional topic for people, right? It's a very difficult topic for many countries to talk about because they are very set in their ways and what has been working all this time up to now. And many people have this idea of why are we going to fix something that isn't broke, even though there's all kinds of carbon emissions and et cetera, fossil fuels. So it really, in the U.S., I would say this is an issue, and part of our regions here in the U.S. is that we kind of can't get out of our own way. Do you know what I mean? There's other states. In the U.S., I can give you some very good examples. California is very forward-thinking. Massachusetts is also very forward-thinking on projects. There's some others on the West Coast. Colorado's getting there. Oregon, very forward-thinking. And they're trying a lot of really cool technologies that hopefully will be successful. I think what's being realized now, and this is nice to see, is that you can't depend on a single technology. So the US is behind that, and they get that. So they're starting to really look at, I like to say, complex projects or multiple technologies to be successful in reducing their carbon footprint, if that makes sense. Iceland is neat because they just get it. There's many European countries that just get it. And you remove the politicalness a little bit out of this. And they are a great example of where you all visited. Geothermal is really forward-thinking and very progressive, but it is very expensive. And it's very expensive to drill down into the earth and find locations where you could utilize the Earth's heat sources, right? So many are intimidated by that, just by how to get there and begin to use the technology, I would say. But, believe it or not, with everything that's going on in the UK is very progressive on some green technology concepts, Norway, et cetera. So there really is, it's the smaller countries right now. I mean, Iceland's not small, but we're getting there.
On the topic of technology and more related to you, we understand that you've started your own company recently, and we were wondering, what are your future plans for that company involving clean technology? Mm-hmm. And I guess kind of like the deeper question is, what kind of legacy do you hope to create from that?
I try to say this without tears in my eyes, but my son is my legacy, right? And Jacoby loves the field I'm in and is very passionate about the field I'm in. He's an 8th grader, and he's probably going to be very mad that I named him and said he's in the 8th grade. But, you know, he hears a lot. He hears my conversations. He hears me talking on the phone. I hope that, and I know because I hear him talking, and he volunteers me for a lot of things. But I hope that he's taken some of these critical lessons and will pass them forward. You know, my passion and the reason why I've gone out on my own is I want to help companies get started. There's so many companies in the green technology space that are just getting started right now. And I am very, very driven to help them build their company, find the right talent, and become an employer of choice. And that truly is my love. You know, and if you build a company with employees that genuinely love where they work, it's amazing what the company will produce, right? So if you have super happy employees that are excited to be coming to work and stand behind what they're working on, I mean, the world is their oyster. They're going to go millions of places. And that's where I want my impact to be. I've been lucky to work for two public companies that have been very positively received and have had some pretty wonderful accomplishments at both. And that really has given me the experience and also confidence to go out on my own. I've always wanted to own my own business and be a small business owner. But now is the best opportunity as any, as I could say. So
Speaking of students like your son, how would you suggest that our school becomes more energy efficient?
well, there's so much. So there's a really cool opportunity right now with AMSA going with their construction project, and I've been pretty vocal, not just with Mr. Brandis, but with Miss Lindsay as well. And really, you guys, this is the perfect opportunity to really not just add a room or add a building, but authentically think about what is our impact going to be and what are we going to use in the buildings and how can we really walk the talk from an engineering standpoint and scientific standpoint with these buildings. It's not just, oh, we're going to throw a couple LED lights in and look, we're green. There's so many other ways that you can go about doing that. You know, having some rooftop gardens, you know, trees, making sure there's, you know, with construction, where a lot of companies don't do a good job is they don't replant trees. So they take out a lot of trees, but they don't put them back. And that's something that AMSA, I think there's some neat things they could do. And I've made some neat suggestions that people could do with fundraising. You know, there's a lot you could do with planting trees on the campus, you know, and it's pretty neat to watch your tree grow up over the years, you know. You don't have to do everything. You start small and you build on it. And as long as you're committed and, you know, when you're evaluating things as you're building or when you're putting in new technology, et cetera, that you're including green technology as part of your discussion. That's the most important. And the students have, I think, the most exciting and most important role in all of this because you're there and you're living and breathing life at AMSA. And your feedback is much more important than us because we're not in the buildings every day. You know, and all of us parents that want to make AMSA a better place. It's important that we hear from you all in this committee about some neat ideas, you know, and I think, you know, the parents are there, it seems like it, but it'd be wonderful if the students became very vocal on this concept as well. And they are. I've certainly talked to many there and been a part of many class presentations, but it's an exciting place to be for the school.
So you seem very passionate as both a parent and like a person that's involved in our school and a business owner about just sustainable practices. So we were wondering, what are some sustainable practices that you partake in at home or ones that you kind of recommend that other people should take interest in?
Well, we walk the talk at home. So we have what we call our own little microgrid. We have solar panels on top of our roof. And we also have 3 batteries in our basement so that when we lose electricity, We depend on our batteries down in our basement. They were installed by Tesla. So we do very, very well when we lose power a lot because we live on top of a hill. So the winds are strong in the winter, and even in the summer, we've lost power. But it's a wonderful way. There's so many incentives, and it's become very affordable to have solar on your home. So that's a great place to start as a homeowner. And it's a long-term investment. It's not something that you do for a year and that's it. But that's a neat place to start. And also just some simple inside things, paying attention to how much water you use. You could do something as simple as when you're brushing your teeth, turn off the water instead of just letting it run in your sink. It's incredible how much water you waste by leaving it on when you do that. Being very mindful, when you're going in the shower and you turn it on and let it run for it to warm up. There is some technology you can install in your home that doesn't cost a lot of money that cycles water faster so you don't have to wait so long for your hot water heater to heat the water up. So there's some really neat things all homeowners can do. In the winter, we also utilize our particular kind of blinds that helps keeps heat in. If you're replacing your windows or have to replace your windows, which many homeowners have to do, what kind of windows are you installing, and making sure that they're not just going to keep you warm in the winter, but also cool in the summer, so you don't have to run your AC as long. For air conditioners, are you putting zones in your house so you don't have to run the entire air conditioner all the time to cool your home? There's so many wonderful things. And all you have to do is go, YouTube's a wonderful resource, the internet, Googling, sustainability initiatives in your personal home. There's so many resources you can utilize just to get started simply.
You kind of touched on being more vocal in the AMSA construction project and water usage at home and home technology, but are there any other ways you suggest that students can kind of pave the way for a more sustainable and eco-friendly future?
Don't be afraid to speak up. There are some wonderful teachers at AMSA, and they genuinely want to help. If you have an idea, bring it forward. Speaking up is the best place to start. You under-promise, over-deliver. That is my mantra with everything. You start very simply, and you celebrate your successes. You don't want to take on such a huge project, saying, let's put solar panels on AMSA's roof. That's actually very complicated because it's a business, and there's a lot. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. It'd be wonderful if AMSA put panels on top of their roofs. But, simple, for students would suggest gardens, or how can more trees be planted? Things that you can turn into community service events, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where some of these ideas can be very powerful with other clubs and other classes, is getting more involved. How can you get more involved and excited to contribute? There's not enough conversation. I don't know if I articulated that, but people aren't talking about this enough.
Yeah.
And they think if we start talking, we're okay. So much more needs to be done, and just being creative and really digging deep. How can we start? And, we may not be able to afford to do the big projects, but there's so much you can do on a smaller scale for the school.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Great day, guys.